All right, welcome everyone to Updates in Coalition Manager, also known as MSR 2.0. This particular section will be for your sexual assault MSRs. So if you already watched the domestic violence MSRs, this is part 2 to complete your sexual assault MSR. And I'm Janelle Williams.
And I'm Laura Zond.
And we are going to go ahead and get started here for you. We're going to show you the new Coalition Manager platform that we will be using. It is not active yet, so you get a sneak preview into Coalition Manager 2.0.
So on the SB numbers, a lot of this is going to look the same. You've got new residential services and new non-residential services. The difference in this, though, is that there's the totals, and that's going to come into play, and we'll talk about that just a little bit more in detail as we go through this. But new residential and new non-residential, that's exactly the same except for the totals. New intimate partner sexual violence services, again the same for new and non-residential except for the total part. And then ongoing services, it's the same kinds of things that you're already collecting. Just pay attention that your totals are correct. Same with ongoing intimate partner sexual violence. Again, there hasn't been a change except the totals on the end. And then total number of new and ongoing bed nights, that hasn't changed either, except once again, got some totals here. Please make sure you are capturing unmet requests for shelter and unmet requests for non-residential services. And again, I think the only difference is there's the total section.
All right. Now, one of the changes you'll see is under ethnicities. A lot of all the categories actually are the same as they were before, same thing that you've collected before. Now you get the total option. And the reason that this is important to watch, like Laura said, is that those totals, you will not get an error if you were used to doing your SVMSRs before. It would give you an error if those totals did not match your total number of new clients. That error will not come up anymore. So please double check your totals. Make sure your totals match for your ethnicities that also match your new residential and also non-residential clients. And one other change that you'll see is in this multiracial category. Before, if you entered someone in multiracial, you'd get a new drop-down box. It is no longer a separate drop-down box. It's just a part of your form. So if you enter in one person as multiracial, make sure you're also entering in what races make up that multiracial person. So if you have one multiracial person that is Black or African American and Asian, you put 1 under multiracial in the first section, and then second section you'd come down and put 1 under Black or African American and 1 under Asian.
And that would be the same under ethnicities for new participants of non-residential. So again, those categories, but those totals, pay attention to that because like Janelle said, you don't get the error message anymore. So you want those totals to match with what you entered up above. And then again, if you put something in the multiracial section, the drop-down box isn't there. It's just the section right below it.
All right, and then we come to ages of new participants. For adults, residential and non-residential, those have not changed. All your age categories are still exactly the same. The only difference is again, you have the totals over there. So make sure, once again, that your total residential ages equals your total residential new clients, and your total ages for non-residential matches your new non-residential clients.
So again, no changes except for those totals to the non-residential. Ages of children, though, that has actually changed just a little bit, the ranges. What you're collecting is the same, and again, pay attention to those totals, but the new age ranges 0 to 2, 3 to 5, 6 to 9, this is where the biggest change is. It used to be, I think, 10 to 13. Now it is 10 to 12 and then 13 to 17. And if you are working with a child or an adult that you really don't know the age, there is an unknown category. So that's the same residential and non-residential. So again, just pay attention to the categories.
All right. Now, the one new section that we are collecting, it is new on the sheets you've been filling out, and so thank you for providing that information. But FIPSA is wanting us to record the number of new individuals that identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or queer. It is a part of the federal report that all the states have to report to, so therefore we get to ask this question on our MSRs now. This question is separated by residential, non-residential, but it does not need to be necessarily on an intake form. This is just somebody that self-identifies, self-discloses that they are LGBTQ, and then you can report those. But please do not use this question on any kind of intake.
It's purely voluntary. This is where you're going to see just a few changes. But so the crisis intervention section, what's changed is the number of new individuals. So remember that the FIPSA reporting is the federal fiscal year. So that's October 1st to the end of September. And that's really how you're basing new versus ongoing individuals kind of things. So somebody who comes into your program that is receiving crisis intervention for the first time, they are counted one time during that federal fiscal year as a new individual receiving that service. We're still collecting number of contacts, new and ongoing, and the hours new and ongoing, but basically this is if somebody maybe you've been providing services to, but they haven't received crisis intervention, maybe you've been working with them for about 3 months and now are doing crisis intervention with them, you would actually count them then during that month as a new individual receiving that service. And that's residential and non-residential, so same thing, number of new individuals receiving non-residential crisis intervention.
All right, and then we got in case management, it's the same thing as your crisis intervention. What new individuals during that fiscal year have received case management services for the first time from your organization? Remember, this is new to the service, not necessarily new to the organization. So the first time they receive case management services, either as a resident or as a non-resident, you would count them as a new individual receiving case management services. Again, number of contacts is still new and ongoing clients, and total number of hours is still for new and ongoing clients, just like you had been capturing before, and then it'll give you the totals over on this side.
Hospital medical advocacy, the change in that, again, is the number of new individuals. So again, the person receiving that service for the first time will be counted one time under new individuals, but continue to count, as you have been, the number of contacts, new and ongoing, and the number of hours new and ongoing.
All right, and then we come to transportation. This is a new category. You have been collecting us that information on those separate sheets. Thank you again for doing that. But transportation is a new FIPSA requirement that we do need to track this information. And so I wanted to take a look at the definition of transportation just to give you an idea. That's any kind of transportation services such as a bus pass, taxi fare, or an advocate transportation. And if you are providing that transportation for the first time to the individual, then they are a new individual receiving transportation services. And then the contacts would be for each time you provide that service. So in our example, we get 1 bus pass, 2 taxi fares, and 3 rides by an advocate counts as 6 contacts. And then you would add up the amount of time you spent providing those services to come up with their number of hours. So that is a new section just to be mindful of. Also, under any section, if you have any questions on what the definition is, there is that nice little I symbol in the blue circle. You'll be able to click on those and it'll open up another box just like you just saw with the transportation. That'll give you a further description and definition, and that's on any section in the new MSR.
So, great news, hotline telephone calls, there have been no changes. So, the calls that you get for a hotline for sexual violence, you're keeping that. Stalking, teen dating violence, there's been absolutely no change in that information.
All right, we made it through services. Now we're ready for support groups, the next section. And so you have been collecting number of groups led by staff under support groups. Now remember, this is advocate-led support groups, not professional therapy groups, but advocate-led groups. And so you'll continue to track that information. But we're also going to be tracking the number of new individuals attending those groups. So the first time someone attends a support group, you would count them once there, even if they have been receiving other services from your organization before. And then the same number that you've been collecting before, the number of individuals attending each and every support group. So that number has not changed.
Licensed professional therapy and therapeutic groups. So if somebody's receiving therapy from your organization, you're going to count the person receiving that for the very first time, one time again in that federal fiscal year, so the number of new individuals for therapy. And then you're going to continue to keep track of, like you have already, the individuals receiving therapy, new and ongoing, so those contacts. And then the total number of therapy hours, individual therapy hours that have been provided. Then the number of groups led by a professional therapist. So again, however many groups for the month, you're going to put that in that section. You've already been doing that. Then the number of new individuals that are attending that group. So just like it was under support group, it's the same for the therapy groups. So you're going to count that individual one time federal fiscal year, first time they attend a therapeutic group. And then you've already been doing that. You're going to count each and every individual that's attending each and every group.
All right. And then some other areas that you'll be collecting data is secondary victim served. This is the same as it was on your SB MSRs before. There's been no changes. Just count the total number of secondary sexual assault victims assisted.
Court advocacy, you're collecting a lot of the same information. So the number of new and ongoing contacts that you assisted with in ex parte, new and ongoing contacts for forward or protection, new and ongoing contacts child orders, new ongoing contacts for other civil and criminal cases. You assisted attaining legal services. Now that doesn't mean you just referred one to legal services. That means you actually help them attain legal services. So again, new and ongoing contacts, provide legal representations, obviously an attorney that's representing that person. You're going to maintain total court advocacy hours and legal representation hours. Now remember, because it gets confusing, court advocacy hours are provided by advocates or a trained volunteer. The legal representation hours are the hours provided by an attorney. But we are collecting the number of new individuals. That's one of those new elements that are receiving any of these services for the first time. And that's before residential, and then the section below non-residential.
And before those were side by side on you, now there's one right underneath the other, so it's a little bit of a formatting change. Just make sure you're keeping track of which section you're in, and that you're putting residential clients in the residential section, non-residential and non-residential services. Then we're doing interpreter services. So there are new individuals that were provided in interpreter services. Again, same as you were tracking for English or for hard of hearing. But this is tracking the first time that they have received that service from your program. We're going to continue to track the same information you were before as far as when ongoing contacts and the total number of interpretation services provided, new and ongoing. The only change there is the number of new individuals who have received interpreter services, the first section. Also, you're tracking the number of groups which you have provided an interpreter service for non-English and deaf clients, and the number of new individuals that attended those groups, and the total number of individuals that attended the groups that were needing interpreter services. Now, remember, interpreter services is a verbal interpretation, so it is usually 3 people involved. You've got your client that speaks one language, your advocate speaks a different language, and you have somebody in the middle translating so that the 2 people can communicate clearly. That does not mean you're a bilingual advocate. That is for case management services to a Spanish client in Spanish. But if a bilingual advocate is providing interpretation services for the court, the circuit clerk at the court, then so that circuit clerk can understand what the client is needing, then it could be counted as interpreter services.
And then translation, that's written word. So the number of documents you have translated from English in another language, that's the total number of those there for the month.
And remember, you get to count those when the document is completed, not each time that you're working on the same document. So hold off on counting those until you're completely finished translating that document, then count it in the total.
Training and communication and communication, there is absolutely no change to that section. So you're currently collecting the stuff, and you're continue to do so. And the same with community awareness activities. The one thing that was in here that we have taken out it's something for children's services. That section was not required by FIPSA. It also not used really in any of statistics we put out. And often there was a lot of confusion around how to get those numbers. So that section has been removed.
That would be that child activities section.
This is my favorite part, maybe of all. This is volunteers. It used to be separated out when you were trying to enter. Now, you got it all in one section. So you're going to report the number of volunteers, and you're going to report the number of volunteer hours. But you get to do it all in section, as opposed to have to scroll down and put that other number somewhere else.
I don't have to hunt for those volunteer hours anymore.
Exactly.
And then we're also going to be entering a success story. This is not required to be done every month, but it is required to be done at least once a year, and that is a change. We are requiring once a year that you submit a success story on your MSRs. And so it could be a success story of a client, it could be a success story of your program. And just remember that when you do your funder reports at the end of the year, they're going to ask you for a success story. Feel free to use these in those funder reports also, just to track the great things that your program is doing and the clients that are receiving services are doing too.
And please remember on that success story, again, it's going to be required once a year, but to remember, if you are using a survivor story, that you redact any personally identifying information so that nobody would be able to tell who that is. So one last thing, and this is not monthly services reports, it is about outcomes for SV services. And so this is primarily for primary purpose SV programs. Currently, outcomes had not been required for SV programs. That will be changing. So it might be something to where you start looking at the outcome, and there are just the two outcomes currently, which is about knowing more ways to plan for safety and also knowing more about community resources. So if you've got questions about that, you can call us. If you're not used to reporting on that, we can kind of talk you through that. But I wanted to let you know that SV outcomes were going to be required.
All right. And Laura, that completes our SB MSRs. We will check that we're in a robot. We will save and we will submit our report, and we will be finished with our SB MSRs. That is it. So we thank you guys for attending this and watching. If you have any questions or would like any more information, please feel free to give us a call.
Yeah, you can give us a call at our toll-free number, 888-666-1911. And Janelle and I's email addresses are on this slide, but anybody should be able to answer the call. So please make sure that you give us a call with questions, and we thank you, and thank you for submitting your MSRs.
Thank you. Bye-bye.